The sudden collapse of a long history. Birth of a new champion. The legacy and pride that have fallen apart. The age of chaos opens. And the two worlds collide once again. The flags of the Zerg have already engulfed the world. The swarm shows no sign of pulling back. The cataclysmic swirl. Striving endlessly for the summit. The ones who dream to be the best again. Honor and glory are the rights of the champion. Tears and vengeance are the rights of the fallen. This war has already begun. All that's left is the birth of a new protagonist. 2019 WCS Global Finals, Round 16.
Yes, we're back. It's day number 4. It's here for the WCS Global Finals. It's the round of 16. And we are going to get into the final day of the proceedings here with Group Day in just a few moments' time. We've already had 3 spectacular days of e-gaming, and now let's have a 4th. My name's Kyle Laris, and to my left-hand side, it's Maynard, it's Artosis, and it is Nathanias. The energy is here. It's palpable. You can feel it in the air, Maynard. I'm hyped.
The atmosphere of e-gaming in here is actually so thick that we have like jungle machete knives to cut through it to get in the green room today. It's actually really wonderful. Very excited for the games. No Terrans, but that's okay because I love each of the Zergs and each of the Protosses in this group.
Aw, like a loving father. Artosis?
Yeah, it's a good final group here today. I'm excited about it. I think it's a group that's actually harder to predict than people say. Everyone's just like, well, it's going to be Trap and Rogue. And I agree with them halfway.
Wow.
What about you, Nathanias?
I agree with them entirely. And far be it from me to tell any other e-gamer what to think about this group, but my personal belief is you should be completely right with that statement, Artosis. This group, some of my favorite players as a renowned Terran whiner, but also Neeb fanboy, I'm supposed to tell you that he is going to make it out of this group. However, I think that Trap and Rogue are quite terrifying when it comes to the video game known as StarCraft 2.
At least, though, Maru did survive when it comes to the Terrans, and he's moved through into that round of 8, of course. Let's take a look back at exactly what happened yesterday, because we had Group C conclude, and we had 2 of our players advancing on when it came to this group as a whole. So, gentlemen, looking back at the start of things, a little bit of an upset, kind of a repeat of Group B to get things going here.
Yeah, this was, it was a very, very fast 2-0 lead for Classic that ended up turning into one of the most exciting reverse sweeps there from Hero Marine. An absolute barn burner, as you would call it, Claris.
Barn burner.
This is just a really, really fun series in general. I'm loving this matchup more and more since the EMP changes, that sort of thing. This was one of the most clutch moves from this tournament, if not the most. That was so sick getting those upgrades. And Hero Marine just played really, really cleanly from here on out and picking all the right fights. And this was, that was the nail in the coffin right there for this push for Hero Marine.
Yeah, that series was just out of control. If you missed it, definitely go back and watch. I just felt like Hero Marine played some awesome games yesterday. Kind of sad to see him go.
Yeah, bit of a shame about the rematch. Thoughts on this one, Anthony?
This was another awesome match. We just had a good day yesterday.
All the games were so back and forth, especially starting things off. Raynor kind of came in as the player that from my perspective, if we're putting him up as one of the guys that can beat Cyril, then he should be able to beat everybody else. And not just win, but dominate. But Hero was not going to go down without a fight, and really gave us a super intense back and forth series. That Game 5 is going to be burned into my memory for the rest of my e-gaming days.
It was an amazing game.
It was indeed. It was a very, very, very exciting series, I feel like, overall, taking the Game 5 out of it. It was just a very, very huge slugfest, very mid-game orientated. We're seeing some late-game units here, but of course, this is after an incredible first few minutes. Feels like we're not giving this Game 5 justice here. It was just an absolute
I had no idea who was going to win
fun
that.
times. Yeah, no one knew.
No one.
Nobody
knew.
knew.
Especially the players.
A clown fiesta, as I think people like to call it. Now that I remember.
Raynor versus Hero Marine, of course, was our winners match. Again, not dissimilar to the story in Group B as things went on.
Raynor showed so much strength. It was ridiculous because I felt like I was watching Hero Marine play some of the best TVZs I've seen.
Yeah.
But Raynor just wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like he was actually going to lose, really. Like there were points where maybe he was behind slightly or something, but it just felt like he was invincible.
Hero Marine felt kind of helpless, or it looked like he felt kind of helpless in some of these situations versus Raynor, where it was, very, very powerful by Raynor, Nathanias.
Yeah, it was brutal, honestly. I mean, from the Terran perspective, it feels like there's no answer when you're going up against someone who takes control of the map the way that Raynor does.
Sure.
That's what we saw, and then we, of course, got into that. One of our Korean players had to be eliminated in that lower match, and this was just a really weird series. Hero trying to force out a lot of Stargate-based play, but Classic was just kind of staying on top of things, constantly scouting. He had some good cheeky aggression of his own, but really just didn't let Hero get too far inside his own head, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, the mind games were real. Hero put up a good effort and a lot of tricky moves, but Classic's stability just kind of carried him through. And, this group, again, it felt like everyone was playing very well. So it was kind of sad every time someone was eliminated, in my opinion.
And then, of course, Classic from this point on did go to that deciding match in the final of Group C. And as much as this was very, very strong by Classic, a commanding position that he was able to take in this series, it was a little bit of a letdown compared to the previous series that they had in the hall.
It's just sometimes StarCraft can just be like that.
Sometimes that.
The beginning of the game, we just saw the DT pick there from Classic just to go for that strategy. Really caught Big Gabe with his pants down, and he just wasn't able to recover from there. And Gabe was just a little frustratingly predictable in these games. He played almost exactly as he did the last time they faced in these maps. And Classic was like, oh, you're going to do that again? Well, that's fine. I have an even better response this time.
Sure. I mean, in Autosis yesterday, at the end of the day, you were saying the longevity of the WCS career players shines through in this kind of format, in this kind of tournament, and Classic exemplified that.
Well, these guys don't necessarily know exactly how the circuit players are going to play.
Sure.
And so we see some of the early matches going to the circuit players, but it feels like when they play again, the Korean players are more ready. Like Classic, of course, hitting Hero Marine again. He was really ready for the way Hero Marine was playing. I feel like you do have to add a little bit more depth to your play and have some other stuff mixed in if you're going to beat one of these top Korean players in 2 best-of-5s.
Yeah, definitely so. And we've seen that happen multiple times now here at the WCS round of 16, but all is good. Let's check in with how things went in Group C as a whole, as you had Raynor advancing in first place in that group. Therefore, he takes himself a first seed going into the round of 8. And then finally, Classic is able to get his revenge down towards that decider match. And it is all important for him, of course, because it is potentially one of the last big stages he's going to be playing on here, potentially in StarCraft 2 for now and for the foreseeable future. So exciting things potentially going on at BlizzCon, but that now brings us neatly on to our final deciding group here in the round of 16. So let's take a look at Group D, how it does stand. The 4 players going to be entering the arena today. We have Neeb, Trap, Elaser, and Rogue, who are big names when it comes to WCS Korea, as well as the WCS circuit, Maynard.
Yeah, I mean, GSL vs. World finalist, Elaser, Mr. 2017 himself, Neeb, multiple-time WCS champion, GSL champions, 2-time GSL finalist. This year, Trap. I mean, there is just medals and accolades all through these 4 gentlemen, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a really stacked group overall, and again, I think it's actually a lot harder to call than people are saying. You can see that these guys have faced off a lot, of course. Neeb having defeated Trap in Kespa Cup and having great games against Rogue the year Rogue even won.
I mean, you could say Rogue has attained the highest of heights out of these four players across their career, of course, now having, I suppose, multiple technical world championships under his belt, as per se. But overall, as Artosis is mentioning here, Nathanias, not only is the group kind of hard to call, but the accolades of a lot of these players are quite close as well, aside from, you know, the Rogue World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, it's four incredibly good players that have all had breakout moments over the last few years. When I look at a player like Neeb, I'm a huge fan of him. Watching him play the last couple of years has been incredible. But you think about, he was the original. I think someone brought this up on the couch yesterday. He was the first guy that came out and was, oh yeah, we have a foreigner that's really kicking some ass over in Korea against these top level players. And that was really awesome to see. But he hasn't maintained that level of consistency. Like, at no point did we really think that someone like Cyril was weak this year, right? Like, he had his moment where we're like, okay, now he's on fire, now he's on a roll. But Neeb is a player that in these tournaments, we can see him go toe-to-toe, but I feel like he has to really bring something extra out of himself to get out of this group, because I haven't seen it this year so far. He's gotten deep. We expect him to get deep.
Yeah.
But the Neeb of old, the Neeb from 2017, when we're thinking about that level of play, we're expecting him to take a series off of one of these top guys like Rainer or Cyril.
I mean, I like how, if you really cast your mind back, Neeb and Trap was the final of that tournament that Neeb suddenly shattered all illusions for everybody. So they end up in the same group. Now, that was at the end of 2016. It's ridiculously long away in esports terms, in e-gaming terms. But I can't help myself. But beyond all of that, of course, here, when you look at the group as it does stand, one of my names that I would look at the group, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe Alezo was one of the underdogs of the group. But then you think back to his results at World Championships, you think back to his results when it comes to the last GSL versus the World Maynard, and nobody can be underestimated here.
No, absolutely not. And, you know, even though Rogue, I would say, would be most people's favored player to come out of this group, Laser is a massive threat to him. Like, if they do get to face off, Laser ZVZ is well and truly his best matchup, and we got to see it a couple times during GSL vs. the World very, very recently. And Rogue's also shown, you know, that he's extremely good at ZVP. I actually don't see any of these Protosses in these groups giving him too hard of a time, even though I think, you know, Trap got a bit of revenge, but... or rather, Protoss got a little bit of revenge against Rogue, but he did 4-0 the guy in the last year's final. That was a very one-sided.
And very clashing styles, I think, Artosis, when you look at this group, which is kind of interesting as well. Never mind the PVZs, but the Protoss versus Protoss, Korean Protoss versus European Protoss versus Protoss, the Zerg versus Zergs, Korean Zerg versus European Zerg versus Zergs. These are very, very different styles that can clash on this stage that can make it very exciting.
Yeah, it really is. But, you know, if you look at the styles, like, for instance, I've always thought of Rogue, he is the ultimate late game player.
Yeah.
And that applies to his ZVZ as well. So I think his style matches up against the European style closer than, like, a Dark or a Sue. So maybe that's going to give a Laser actually a little bit more comfort. I'm not entirely sure about that. As far as like Neeb and his style goes, he was like the supreme late game Protoss player, but that's not as viable right now. So he does have to bring something special, like Nathanias was saying.
You need to have that late game be, you know, decent in order to actually use it to win games, unfortunately. And I feel like that level of pressure for the PVZ, like when you feel like you have that clock on you, it's terrifying. It's terrifying because you know that all of these guys are practicing against players who are doing similar types of strategies to try and win in those mid-game plays, and that's going to be a story to follow throughout the rest of this, even round of 8 onwards, is if Zergs can get to that late game, who's going to be able to beat them there?
Let's talk about our first match here, Trap versus Aleza, which is going to be happening on the stage in a few moments' time. Trap, for me, in my mind, even though he hasn't won himself a tournament this year on the biggest stages by any means, has had an amazing year, Artosis, with a semi-finals in GSL into second place. Is he the new Sue?
I don't think so, to be honest. I don't think
6 second places. Wants to get that moniker.
I think Trap is someone who is going to win championships, just not quite yet. I mean, the players that he's been hitting, the current state of the metagame, it makes it a little bit hard for him to take the tournament all the way home. But he's really come into his own. He looks super strong. He's kind of like a new stats on the scene where it's like, oh, this is wonderful. We have another very strong macro Protoss that really knows what he's doing, and it feels like he's going to be around forever.
And going up against a Laser, Maynard, what are your prospects?
For Trap, for Laser, or just for both of them? I think,
them.
You know what? I'm going to make a big call right here. We're going to see a lot of Night Swims. A lot. I see a lot of nice swims. I think a laser will come out and head in the end, though.
That's very
the
brave
big
of you,
call.
Maynard.
How
to make
brave.
that
I know, it's
call.
the sickest call ever. So if someone put a briefcase of $1 million in front of me, you know what? I might take it.
Those are the types of calls that people are going to bring up for the rest of your career. You
Wait.
careful.
What about 1,001? Would you take the bet?
I would take the bet for 1,001.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oof, that's big money.
That'd be 2,001 I've made today.
Big money. Big
I do win
money.
that bet, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. It is now time to head into our first match here of the day. It will be a laser going up against Trap. Let's hear from them before we get into our first series here in Group D.